let the chips fall where they may, and you're still going to have a black-white split, I think, just because of the economics involved. Well, let me tell you something I did. I did a study for graduate work of the Thurman campaign, which I directed in 1978. We got about 8% of the black vote in the traditional black precincts. Then I went back and selected 300 blacks out of, I've got a tape of every registered voter in my state. So I went and selected 300 blacks out of areas that were 98 to 96% white, that were $30,000 a year above people, meaning black lawyers, black doctors, black black people who were making $30,000, which in 78 in South Carolina is about like making $60,000. Thurman got 38% of that black vote. So now, what affirmative action and all this is going to do in the long run is create a legitimate black middle class, an upper middle class. That voter, in my judgment, will be more likely to vote with his economic interests than he will anything else. And that is the voter that I think just through a fairly slow but very steady process will go Republican. Because I'm finding out now, you know, the blacks that have helped me in the campaigns have been doctors, lawyers, and people like that, and they're very interested in getting involved. And they're getting nothing out of the Democratic Party. They're getting nothing. So I think that is basically what's going to happen, and I think race as such is going to dissolve as an issue, but you are going to have the race question in the sense of, on one side, you're going to have a guy who's a millionaire, and he's got something in common with a guy who's making $10,000 a year. You know, he's busting his ass, and he's putting into the system, and he's paying taxes, and somebody else is not doing anything and taking out of the system. Those two guys, you know, the George Wallace voter and the millionaire have something in common. And I'll tell you something else. Statistically, as the number of non-producers in the system move toward 50%, that makes the system more and more polarity to where that drives the Wallace guy and the traditional Republican closer and closer together as they become threatened as their taxes go up and as inflation goes up because of the non-productive side of society.
Well, just moving away from the race issue, just in general, you don't have, from what you said, I don't get the feeling that you have tremendous optimism for the Republican Party in the near future below the presidential level in the South. Is that right, from what you were saying?
No, let me tell you. I think that there's tremendous opportunity on the Senate level, gubernatorial, and number one, statewide. In other words, you know, I believe in kind of a funnel down, you know, presidential where Senate, governor, then congressional, then the state houses. I think that you have a situation now because of this fractured party identification. Like I say, that's fractured, and that the candidate that best approaches and best identifies with the economic issues and national defense will win. Every campaign I was involved in, and I'll just name a few. I had Gene Johnson against Richard Pryor. I had Tommy Hartnett against Bug Ravenel. I had John McPeer against John Generette. You know, I had Floyd Spence against Tom Turnipseed. And all those campaigns were populist.
This is a consulting organization that
that I was president of, as well as doing Deep South things for radio. And in all of those campaigns, plus I was peripherally involved because one of my partners with the Paula Hawkins thing and the East thing. And in every one of those races, the reason we won is that we best identified with the economic issues and best identified with national defense. Put ourselves with the electorate, put the Democrat over here. Now, in a situation where the Democrat best identified with the most credibility with the economic issues and all, he won with no trouble. South Carolina, Fritz Hollings walked over his other guy. He was able to position himself as being conservative on the budget committee, this, that, and the other, and being in the committee. He had no problem. We were able to print Richardson Pryor as a big spender, part of the problem type guy, inflationary type guy. Same with Bug Ravenel. placed our guy as the conservative and this, that, and the other. I think we're now down to to real issues. I mean, economics and national defense. And I think in any given situation, if the Republican can best stake out those issues, he wins. Statewide or on congressional basis. And that never has been the case. 80 is, I think, the watermark year in that in the South.
You mentioned a fractured party identification situation. These white blue-collar Southerners, if they, when asked by surveyors what party to belong to, they invariably say Democratic Party. Are you saying that?
Or independent.
Or say, yeah, or independent. Rarely Republican. But if they consistently vote Republican or can be lured to vote Republican, at some point you almost want to call them Republican.
Well, sure, they will call themselves independents an awful long time. Because they're still voting for the Democrat that lives down the street that's on the county council. Or the Democrat, they are independents because, they're voting for a Republican for the president, Republican for U.S. Senate, Republican congressman, but there's 15 other offices on the ballot, and every one of those guys they're voting for is a Democrat.
When is that going to change?
Well, that's a good, now, the local level is a different, okay, first of all, I did a paper on Congress, and I'm sure you've seen the same numbers. A U.S. Senator has a 61% chance of getting reelected. A congressman has a 96.4% chance of getting reelected. Simply because of the homogeneity of the district, the whole bit. So, therefore, those simple statistics, I can look back at 1980 and say, I didn't think it, but sure it was possible for us to pick up all those Senate seats. Statistically it was 40% chance. That's pretty good numbers. It's not great. But it's very tough to fight the statistics that have nothing to do with party identification, nothing to do with anything else. Basically the power of incumbency in a congressional district. Now, when you get down even on a smaller level, these little state houses and state senates, and you've got all these incumbents. The House of Representatives, South Carolina, we've done some revolutionary things. We now control the congressional delegation. 4 Republican congressmen, a Republican U.S. senator, 20 Republicans in the House, 125 Democrats. Those 125 Democrats are going to run for re-election. There's no way to entice them to switch parties because you can't go out and tell a guy, if you switch, we'll give you all this good stuff, because they're still in the majority party. And as long as those guys are running for re-election, so the only way you basically win is in new seats. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So you slowly creep up on new seats.
Well,
there's actually 3 parties in the South. There's a statewide party system, there's a congressional district party system, and there's a local party system. And they're 3 separate entities. There's some similarities, some changes and anything else, but there's actually 3 party systems, which generates a whole set of circumstances in each different case.
Are the Southerners looking to the Reagan administration for assistance in boosting realignment at the local level?
Yeah,
and can they?
But very candidly, this is going to be very tough. I think that the whole nature of politics, because of the fractured party system, because of the media system, and so forth, creates a situation in which one individual or one institution, presidency, and the individual being President Reagan, is going to have a hard time affecting behavior in situations unrelated to his own specific thing. In other words, Reagan has a good chance of affecting behavior when he gets on TV to talk about, please support my tax program, please support my allowance. But for any politician in America has a tough time anymore of affecting behavior in other races. Now, I have not done a paper, but I've read studies, and I firmly, as a practitioner, can tell you that from the 70s, starting in the 70s, there's a very, very definite trend line on endorsements having decreasing effect. Now, South Carolina, again, as an example, I supported Reagan. I was his campaign director. Jim Edwards and Strom Thurmond, everybody came out from Compton. Now, in 1955 or something like that, there's no question. There wouldn't even been a race in South Carolina. But as much as Thurman's got more credibility than any other political figure probably in the country within his own state, he was not able to keep us from just walking all over John Compton. If it had been Strom Thurmond versus Ronald Reagan, Thurmond would have killed him. But what I'm saying in general, the president can't go at it, even like he could in the 60s, but he couldn't do it in the 60s. See, in other words, it never happened. What they wanted to happen in the 60s never happened. So I can't, in other words, we can do a lot of things to help. We can go out and bring candidates in here and help recruit them. Hopefully the block grant, a whole bunch of things to help. But I do not see one person or one institution drastically being able to re-alter something like this. I think it's going to,
But if any one person is doing it, you've got the job.
That's right. What I'm doing is saying, it's got the job, but I'm trying to be reasonable about my work. Let me see this. This may be something you can use. Type thing I'm writing, but it basically addresses this same thing, the precinct organization.
Well, what about that race in Mississippi yesterday?
Well, it's a good example of what I'm talking about. If we had to, there ain't no question that Reagan is popular as shit down there, because I saw 3 polls on the thing. He's up in the 70s. And if endorsements were all they were cracked up to be, the guy would have walked all over this board. That's just one of many, many issues, and the more important issues are right down in there.
The heavy black vote, of course, won it for him. So
sure.
The Republican had a majority of white supporters.
Oh, sure. I need to analyze what's going